of Base came out of nowhere. Just some Swedish kids mixing reggae with pop. And next thing you know, they were running the 90s with hits like The Sign and All That She Wants. But behind the scenes, chaos, mental breakdowns. A fan broke in with a knife. One member disappeared from the spotlight, and another got hit with Nazi gang accusations. The success was massive, but the drama, even bigger. They sold 50 million records, but it all slowly fell apart. So what really went down? Grab your tea or coffee. This story gets real. Ace of Base literally shot to pop stardom out of nowhere. The band was made up of 3 Berggren siblings and a friend. The Berggrens came from a musical background. Their parents were very musical and encouraged them to do music.
Well, my family is always musical because it has from my father and my mother. Okay.
In 1987, Jonas Berggren, the first of the 3 siblings, who had been in this punk new wave band called G. Conrad, a super edgy named after a Hungarian author no one's heard of, decided to put together a band for a school project. He got 2 buddies, Johnny Linden and Nicholas Trenk. But then, his sisters Lynn and Jenny joined in and started singing as vocalists. Their band name game was a mess. First, they were New Arbat Avenue. Sounds fancy, right? It's named after a Moscow street. Then they switched it up to CAD, as in computer-aided disco, and Tech Noir, inspired by the Terminator. Anyway, they were just out there vibing in Swedish clubs with a mix of Italo, disco, and house music, like they were born for this pop life. So, by 1989, Johnny left the band. Then, Niklas, he straight up skipped a gig at Beltespennerparken in Gothenburg on August 4th, 1990, to go to a Rolling Stones concert instead.
Quit out of the blue was the night the Rolling Stones played in Gothenburg.
Jonas had to call in his buddy Ulf Ekberg to fill in, and that's when things really started to take off.
In our band got stage fright, and Ulf joined in. So it was the 4 of us. Then our name was Tech Noir.
Now, here's where it gets interesting. While chilling next to a Jamaican reggae band in the studio, they got a wild idea to mix reggae and pop, and that became their thing. But they still needed a fresh start and a new name, since their old one, Tech Noir, was a nightmare to pronounce, and even worse to remember. Ulf was vibing to a Motorhead song, Ace of Spades, and that's how Ace of Base was born in early 1991.
Hey, we can be named Ace of Base, and not just, what? Ace of Spades? Oh, Ace of Base?
They started playing in Gothenburg clubs, trying to get recognized, but the locals were all about that heavy metal life, so techno was not having it.
A gig, and one of our guys in our band got stage fright, and Ulf joined in, so it was the 4 of us.
They sent demo tapes everywhere. We are talking of 30 companies, but nothing. It wasn't until May 1991 when Jonas and Ulf took a trip to Stockholm, hitting up record labels like Polar Music and Swemix, who liked them but had no time until fall. But they weren't giving up yet. In July 1992, Klaus Lunding from Telegram Records had them record a new version of Wheel of Fortune at Decibel Studio, but no record contract came with it. Despite that, the track was sent out to Swedish radio and clubs. And it hit Gothenburg's local Jockey Toppen chart in March. Big deal? Not quite, because it didn't really take off in Sweden. So Mega Records decided to shift their focus to Denmark. By the end of June 1992, the single got a proper commercial release in Denmark and went straight to number 6 on the singles chart before climbing up to number 2. With that momentum, the group kept working on new material and found their inspiration in KO's Another Mother, a hit from 1990. Then, they met Dennis Pop. In early 1992, Jonas and Ulf sent him a demo tape with a track called Mr. Ace. At first, Pop wasn't sold on it, but fate had other plans. The tape got stuck in his car's cassette player, and after listening to it on repeat, he finally got what they were doing.
And I put it in my car stereo and it got stuck, so I kept hearing it every time I drove in that car.
Still, he had lost their contact details. But when they called him a few months later, he invited them to re-record the song at his Swemix studio in July 1992. That's how Mr. Ace was reborn as All That She Wants. The The single dropped at the end of August and shot straight to #1 on the Danish charts, bumping Wheel of Fortune to #2. Mega Records, seeing the heat, pushed the band to get an album out for the Christmas market. So they did what any determined pop group would do. They recorded and mixed the album in just a few weeks.
Maybe the chorus there is good and that verse there is good. And we put it together and we made a song of it.
Happy Nation dropped on November 2nd, 1992 in Denmark, and it was a hit in Europe. But America, it wasn't charting. The US division of the label wasn't even interested. But in Europe, the album popped off, and All That She Wants hit #1. 3 in Sweden, and stayed at #1 in Germany for 8 weeks. Meanwhile, other singles like Happy Nation and Waiting for Magic kept the momentum rolling across Europe. Then in May 1993, All That She Wants hit #1. Won for 3 weeks in the UK, but not in America. Clive Davis, who was vacationing on his yacht, heard the song on the radio, and he rushed to sign a deal with Mega Records for the US market.
Cal, I want that record, and that band,
However, Ace of Base wasn't done yet. They'd already started on a second album, The Sign, which was named after a new track they were listening to. But because of the Happy Nation import sales, Clive Davis got a little twitchy and decided to rework the album. He put a few new tracks on, changed the title to The Sign, and dropped it in the US on November 23rd, 1993. And guess what? The album stayed in the top 3 on the Billboard Top 200 for 26 weeks, and even scored a Grammy nomination for Best Pop Album in 1995. Before you know it, Ace of Base was everywhere. In March 1993, Ace of Base hit a scandal when Swedish newspaper Expressen reported that Ulf had been part of a skinhead gang in his teenage years, long before joining the band.
I wasn't against it. That was my crime.
Lynn quickly defended him, saying that Ulf had left that all behind, and her family had no ties to any of it. But the drama didn't stop there. In 2013, a report by Vice brought up an old 1998 unauthorized CD titled Uffe Was a Nazi that contained racist songs supposedly from Ulf's former band, Commit. It painted Ulf as a troubled teenager involved with neo-Nazi skinhead groups. But Ulf addressed the controversy in a later interview. He apologized for any disappointment caused and emphasized that Ace of Base never shared those extremist views and strongly opposed both far-right and far-left ideologies. Things got real dark in April 1994 when a German fan straight up broke into the Berggren family crib with a knife. Jonas later said she woke him up with the blade pressed to his throat. Dude had just come back home after 2 years away. He was shook. He called it the ugly side of fame. Right after that nightmare, he found out they were #1 in the US. While everyone else was hyped and ready to throw a party, Jonas was sitting there thinking, I almost died. He wasn't in a party mood. He was just broken. Despite the intense pressure, the band's success was undeniable. After their debut album hit it big, offers started rolling in, including a performance at Madison Square Garden and endorsement deals with brands like Pepsi and Reebok. But after 2 years of non-stop touring, they were simply too worn out to accept these big opportunities. At the same time, their record labels worldwide were demanding a follow-up album. And in an attempt to speed up the process, they decided to let each member contribute their own tracks, instead of Jonas and Ulf doing most of the writing as they had before. Ace of Base was on a roll, but their sophomore album, The Bridge, released in 1995, marked a bit of a departure from their usual sound. While they kept their signature reggae and dance vibes, they experimented with more ballads and diverse tracks, showcasing their versatility. The lead single, Lucky Love, was debuted at #1 in Sweden when it was released in October. Not only was it their first chart topper in their homeland, but they also premiered it at the 1995 World Championships in Athletics in Gothenburg. However, after a 1996 tour across Asia and Australasia, the group decided to pull back from the spotlight. Plans to release tracks like My Deja Vu and Edge of Heaven as singles were scrapped. They only returned in 1997 for a performance at the World Music Awards and another at Princess Victoria of Sweden's 20th birthday bash. After feeling rushed on the second album, the band took their time with their third, Flowers. This time, they had all the time they needed and recorded a more eclectic mix of songs, ranging from Motown and gospel influences to more traditional pop. They dubbed it Flowers, describing the album as a bouquet of different sounds and styles. At the height of their fame, things began to take a dark turn. Lynn was nowhere to be found in their live shows, and she handed over the lead vocals to Jenny. Fans weren't sure what was going on, but it was later revealed that Lynn had dealt with vocal damage, was struggling with depression, and wasn't exactly loving the whole fame game.
Lynn doesn't want to be in the spotlight as much now. She wants Jenny to be that more.
She even stepped back from promotional duties, with her face sometimes blurred in photos. By 1999, the band was back in the studio, writing as a complete quartet for the first time in a while. But instead of a full album, they dropped a best of compilation, Singles of the 90s, featuring 13 singles and 3 new songs. The single C'est la vie did pretty well in several countries, hitting #1. One in Spain, but in the US, not so much. Then Arista Records dropped Greatest Hits in 2000, and even a new dance mix of Every Time It Rains was released to promote it. Unfortunately, both the single and album didn't make much of a dent on the US charts. After what felt like forever, Ace of Base dropped their 4th album, Da Capo, in September 2002. Now, it did okay across Europe, but let's be real, it didn't hit the same heights as their earlier stuff. The group kinda dipped out of the spotlight for a bit, taking it easy in 2003 and 2004. During this time, Jenny was doing her own thing, singing at Christian shows with her hubby, Jacob Petren, and even dropped an album with Swedish group Arose. In November 2007, and the group finally came back with the Ace of Base, Redefined World Tour. They were out here remixing their classic hits. But here's the juicy part. Jenny confirmed that Lynn was out for good because the spotlight wasn't meant for her. She just couldn't handle fame. In 2009, Ulf told Digital Spy they were thinking about adding a new member to the group, or maybe even changing the group's name. At the same time, Jenny was doing her own thing, writing her autobiography, Vinna Hela Verelden, and getting ready to drop her solo album, My Story, in 2010. Things got a little confusing when Jenny tweeted in November 2009 that she wouldn't be part of the group's next album. People thought she quit, but she later cleared the air, saying she didn't leave. They were just trying out a new setup with different members. So no, she wasn't done with the band. In 2010, Jenny spilled the real tea in an interview. She said straight up they didn't want her back. Sis claimed she wasn't even allowed to join in on the songwriting. Meanwhile, Jonas and Ulf clapped back, saying Jenny wasn't in support of the idea of adding new members. And even though she never officially quit, they felt like they had to keep it pushing without her. In 2010, 2 female singers were added, Clara Hagman, who Ulf met while judging Idol 2009, and Julia Williamson. They all keep the Ace of Base name. But you know, the vibe had changed. Their album, The Golden Ratio, dropped in September 2010 and charted at number 20 in Germany, but didn't even chart in Sweden. There was some talk about an acoustic version, but it never happened. And no singles came out to back up that album. So, safe to say, The Golden Ratio flopped. In January 2014, Julia revealed that she actually left Ace of Base back in 2012. She said she never officially quit, but one day she just didn't hear from the group again, which was super weird. She also confirmed Clara left the same way. However, Ulf didn't comment on this. In 2015, Ulf told ABC News that a reunion could happen if the stars aligned, but it wasn't a definite thing. Then, in 2016, Jenny shut down any reunion talk, saying they were done making music together, but they were still family and had some fun stuff planned. Just no music involved. And since then, nobody heard much about them. They finally got their flowers in 2024 when they were inducted into the Swedish Music Hall of Fame. Their net worth? Ace of Base stacked up an estimated $60 million and sold over 50 million albums worldwide. They didn't just run the charts, they won a lot, and a lot of Swedish Grammys awards too.
Well, thank you very much.
From The Sign to All That She Wants, they had the game on lock in the 90s. What are they up to now? Well, the original Ace of Base crew is doing their own thing. Jenny's still dropping solo tracks. She even released new music in 2024. Ulf slid into the tech world and helped produce the All That She Wants documentary. Jonas is producing and writing music in his own studio. And Lynn? She left the spotlight back in 2007 and has been low-key ever since. A full-on reunion might not be possible, but each of them is repping the legacy in their own lane. One thing's for sure, Ace of Base still left their print on pop history.